question is how quickly. And once we get through this, our economy, which is beginning to recover, although our unemployment rate is still high, it too will bounce back. And so President Biden and Vice President Harris's first objective is one that Republicans share with Democrats, which is to get us through this pandemic and recover economically. So I see there a remarkable opportunity for President Biden to acquire political capital if he focuses, as I expect he will, on the pandemic. So that's the next step, I think. There will, of course, be other changes that he is going to make today, but his main goal will have to be dealing with the pandemic. I believe that's what America expects, and I think it's what he'll deliver.
See if we have Kate Anderson. Oh, we still don't have Kate. Tim, in terms of challenges, though, there's the pandemic, which is clearly the top priority for this administration. The Obama administration, when they came in, they thought they were facing, perhaps the greatest challenge a president had faced in modern times or in recent history. Arguably, the challenges this administration is facing are even greater.
Yes, there's the political crisis. In part, dealing with the pandemic, I believe, will provide an opening to dealing with the political crisis. President Biden, in his inaugural address, also showed determination to deal with the darkness associated with January 6th. He made it clear that while he will be president of all people, he will not countenance violent dissent. He was extremely strong on that point, and clearly January 6th influenced this inaugural address. So I expect investigations to go forward. I hope Congress will work with the executive branch, and so that the violent side of the dissent that tried to overturn our election will be dealt with. So the political crisis will not be far from his mind, but I think he's right to see a bridge to Republicans that he can build while dealing with the pandemic.
Kate Anderson, Brower, what did you think of what you heard today?
Well, I think what President Biden was trying to do was remind us of who we are as Americans. And I was very struck by what he said about the exhausting outrage of the last 4 years. And, that the dream of justice for all will be deferred no longer. And that we'll go back to these, engaging in the international order and our alliances abroad. And I was also struck by what he said, saluting President Carter and thanking the presidents who went before him and the presidents who we'll see at Arlington with him. And in a way, it was just getting us back to normal and what we expect from our leadership, bringing down the temperature and ushering us through this just unprecedented moment in our history where we have these dual crises happening at the same time. So I thought it was very inspirational. I thought it was good that he didn't do something that like FDR with the New Deal, where it was outlining specifics. This was more of a thematic speech, and I thought that was important to bring us all together and unify us as a country.
Yeah. Let's go back to Wolf.
We're about to see a few ceremonies unfold, and John, I want to talk a little bit about what we're about to see. The President Biden will be signing 3 documents while in the president's what's called the President's Room in the Capitol: an inauguration date, proclamation, nominations to cabinet positions, nominations to sub-cabinet positions as well. And you're looking here at live pictures coming from Arlington National Cemetery. He and the former presidents who were there will be going over there to visit the Tomb of the Unknowns. This is an important moment as well. So there will be several ceremonies now unfolding that have significant substantive meaning.
And those ceremonies, I think even especially so after this at the Capitol, a ceremony where the new president stressed unity, that will be a huge challenge ahead. The fact that the former presidents, including the Republican President George W. Bush, along with Presidents Clinton and Obama, will travel with him to Arlington National Cemetery for that wreath laying. Again, a very important symbol to the country and the world that we respect each other, we can get along, we can set aside differences for the bigger things that matter to all of us. That's the message the new president is trying to show today. And in between, you mentioned this ceremony we're about to see, signing those cabinet and sub-cabinet nominations, other proclamations. He's president now. His signature carries the weight of president of the United States. He has a very ambitious agenda in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of trying to get his team in place. So he has to get about the official business. And it's all part of this giant change. Those pictures, the unity, the diversity on that platform that you see there now, from the performers to the speakers to the swearing in of Vice President Harris, to the young poet, the diversity in the pictures, the diversity in the performance, a message of change there, and then in signing these documents and sending up a new team that has a very different approach to government than the Trump team. President Trump, now former President Trump, never respected the government, never filled a lot of the lower level jobs, and he needed that government in the pandemic. One of the reasons it was so miserably mismanaged was because he did not have a team in place, and then he rejected science and logic and the type. So the official part of this is incredibly important. By the end of the day, the United States will be back in the Paris Climate Accords, or at least the paperwork will be signed. The Trump Muslim travel ban will be abandoned by President Biden. So you're beginning to see the new policy agenda, but I still think the most important point on this day are these images, the flags, our monuments, this city, and again, it's a giant challenge to carry it through. And I think Joe Biden was very candid in very plain-spoken language about how tough it will be to govern in this world where leaders, including the former president, lie and try to create their own facts. That is a giant challenge for this new president going forward. But I think just the plain-spoken language in which he candidly addressed it, essentially a come on to the American people. Shake out of this funk. Let's try to work together on the big things. The pandemic does not know politics. A struggling economy does not discriminate based on politics. That is his challenge and his opportunity in these early days.
And let's not forget, in addition to being the president of the United States, now President Biden, he's going to be signing these important documents over at the Capitol, but he's also the commander-in-chief of the U.S. military. And on the east front of the U.S. Capitol, that's coming up fairly soon, President Biden will review the readiness of military troops. This is called a military task in review. It'll be hosted by the commander of the Joint Task Force National Capital Region, but it will underscore, John, that he is, yes, president, but he's also commander-in-chief, and there's a whole new world out there for military readiness, threats to the United States, national security and foreign policy. As you and I well know, we covered now President Biden for many years when he was a senator and vice president. National security, foreign policy is a huge, huge matter for him.
Absolutely, which is another reason he wants to get the team in place, and one of the reasons he offered a very comforting message. If you're a member of the NATO alliance, and former President Trump sort of thumbed you in the eye for 4 years, Joe Biden said America will be re-engaged in the world. He talked about our power, but more importantly, the power of our example and leading through example. Very different. Again, change is the word you're going to hear repeatedly from me today, because Joe Biden is going to reset just about every compass point of U.S. policy and of the personal character of the man who lives in the White House. You mentioned that the commander-in-chief role. We were on the pictures of Lady Gaga singing the national anthem, but what was remarkable to me, number one, this was a safe ceremony. We have this unprecedented security here. Things went off safely and quietly and calmly. Number two, you have this unprecedented number of National Guard troops here in the nation's capital. They were saluted during the national anthem, as of course is tradition and as is proper. As Lady Gaga sang the national anthem, it was just quite a striking scene to look down from our balcony here as it was playing out and watch the hundreds of young men and women deployed from National Guard units all across the country, standing straight up in salute as the national anthem sung by Lady Gaga. I'm going to use the word cool. It was cool.
Yeah, it was very moving. It was very, and she did an amazing job. I must say, I'm a huge Lady Gaga fan over the years, indeed. You know, if there's something else that's going to happen this afternoon that we're not paying that much attention to, which is so significant, the Democrats will become the majority in the United States Senate. There are 3 senators elect: John Ossoff, Raphael Warnock of Georgia, Alex Padilla, California. They will be United States senators. The new vice president will swear them in, and as a result, Mitch McConnell will now become the minority leader, and Chuck Schumer, John, becomes the majority leader. How important is that?
Critical. And again, back to that word change. This is a dramatic day of change for the United States government. And the fact that it'll be the narrowest of majorities, 50-50, with Vice President Harris breaking the tie. But Joe Biden has no cabinet members confirmed on this day. One of the reasons for that is because up until that ceremony happens in a few short minutes, Republicans controlled the chamber and they dragged their feet. They would not give hearings to the Biden nominees. They said it was because of the coronavirus. Then they did have some legitimate concerns after the insurrection. But it is not normal that we don't have at least a defense secretary, the Department of Homeland Security since 9/11, the Secretary of State. Normally, no matter whether it's Democrat or Republican, the Senate tries to get those teed up so that they can be confirmed on this first day. But by the end of this day, another dramatic change. Again, the narrowest of majorities, which will still make it hard for Joe Biden to get big policy initiatives through. But you do control the Senate floor, you control the committees, therefore the Biden team can now move much more quickly through the United States Senate.
And now for the first time in a while, the Democrats will not only be in the White House, control the White House, but the House of Representatives narrowly, and the Senate very, very narrowly, but the Democrats are the majority.
Right, just as when President Trump came to town, he had a Republican Senate and a Republican House. Joe Biden, the Democrats now have complete control of Washington. I will say, the Democratic majority in the House is very narrow. The Democratic majority in the Senate is the narrowest possible. Again, 50-50 with the vice president. This will be one of the creative political tensions of this new administration, because the Republicans are saying, you know, your majorities are very close. This was a close election climate. The Republicans actually picked up seats in the House. You should go slow, Mr. President. You should reach out to us, Mr. President. That's what the Republicans will say. The progressives, especially in the Democrat side, will say, go bold. We have the power. Let's use it. Let's use it on climate change. Let's use it on healthcare policy. Let's use it on economic policies. This will be one of the constant tensions of the Biden administration. Again, one of the leadership challenges he faces. At the moment, Democrats are united. They are joyous, overjoyed at this day. When it comes to some of the policy issues, there will be tension. But I will say this, Wolf. I'm looking at my emails during the last segment, getting emails from both Democrats and Republicans about policy questions. God forbid we actually have policy debates in Washington. We didn't have many of those in the Trump administration. The repeal and replace, the Obamacare debate early on, the Trump tax cuts. But otherwise, it was about what Trump wanted, not about policy.
That's Lady Gaga, we can see right there. She performed the national anthem. She sang the national anthem and did an amazing job, as she always does. But go ahead, finish your thought.
But it's just this town, again, this government, again, is going to debate big, substantial policies. First, a new Biden stimulus plan, more money for Americans struggling, more money for small businesses, a realignment of the public health infrastructure to try to surge vaccines. Then climate change. For 4 years, the President of the United States, with the help of Republicans,